Hi, my name is Kong Chun Ho. My matrix number is 271022. We're going to talk about an analysis of manufacturing sector in Malaysia by using internal and external factors towards corporate governance perspective. Our companies are Boiler Met Holding Berhad, QL Resource Berhad, and Malaysia Steels Berhad. So first thing first, let me introduce my group mate. The first one is Sim Shang Hao. The matrix number is 271109. The second one is Yakaya. The matrix number is 269933. Alright, let's talk about the introduction. This is the background of the manufacturing sector in Malaysia. The manufacturing sectors actually exist since the colonial era. But the contribution is just about 8% of the nation income. When 1929, the manufacturing sectors already produced 50% of tin ingots to the world. So when it comes to 1959, the export industry increased 300%, which is from 450,000 to 1.8 million. When it comes to 1968, the food, rubber, and wood steel were the major contribution to the nation. So the basic metals, textiles, and electrical machineries grew 30% per annum. So 1970, the value of manufacturing goods exported to manufacturing goods imported ratio increased 17.7%. When it comes to 1980, the policy has experienced the economic growth of another nation through the promotion of heavy industry. This is our M. Our M is to investigate how independent variable, which is internal factors and external factors, influence the CG index performance in the company. So the data we use come from an annual report, which is financial statements and balance sheet from the year 2015 and 2019. So these are the research objectives and questions. So the first one is to investigate how internal factors influence the CG index. The second one is to investigate how external factors influence the CG index. So the third one is to investigate how external and internal factors influence the CG index. So when it comes to the question, the first one is what is the relationship between the internal factors toward CG index? Second one is the relationship between the external factors towards CG index. So the third one is the relationship between the internal and external factors toward the CG index. So we come to a literature review. So there are few firm specific factors. So the first one is company performance. The second one is market risk. So the third one is operational risk, liquidity risk, and the last one is the credit risk. So that is all from me, and I would like to pass to the next presenter, which is Mr. Yakaya. Thank you.
Thank you, Chun-Ho. And next, I will continue with the methodology in this study. Population of sampling technique will be used to examine the outcomes from a subgroup of population, and it is unnecessary to examine every individual. There are two statistical analyses, which are primary data and secondary data. There are two variables in this study which are dependent variable and independent variable. SPSS version 26 is used to carry out the data querying and studying of market. In findings and analysis part, only some variable will be picked to give the further information. Firstly, I would like to start with the internal factor, which is return on asset. Mastel obtained a negative ROA compared to QL Resource and Boiler Merch Holding in 2015 because of the instability of exchange rate in other countries. From 2015 to 2019, Boiler Merch Holding has the highest ROA but only recorded a moderate result in 2017, and hence the company is considered earning more profitability. Next is the quick ratio. Mastel has the lowest quick ratio in 2017 due to the instability of exchange rate increased the unnecessary cost of the financial performance. Boiler Merch Holding has the highest ratio within 5 years and illustrates that the company has $1.6182 of liquid assets available to cover each of $1 of its current liabilities. And next is the Corporate Governance Index. In 2017, the Corporate Governance Index is set among 3 companies. It's obvious that the QL resource will be more likely to fulfill the listed criteria in corporate governance. Overall, a good corporate governance has been practiced well in these companies. And next, I will talk about the external factor, which is gross domestic product. In 2015, the GDP is recorded as 5.0 and it decreased slightly in 2016, which is 4.2, and after that increased again in 2017, which is 5.9, the highest GDP compared to other years. And GDP keep falling from 2018 to 2019, which is recorded 4.7 to 4.3 along the period. And next is the interest rate. In 2015, the interest rate illustrates the record, which is 3.25, and later it dropped to 3.0 in 2016 and 17. An obvious increment of interest rate can be shown in 2018, which get back as the same in 2015, and finally it dropped back again to 3.0 in 2019. And last is the exchange rate. In 2015, the exchange rate is considered as the third highest, which is 4.3, and raised out to 4.5 and in 2016, but the rate decreases to 4.1 in 2017. The highest exchange rate is recorded in 2018, which is 5.5, and then decreased to 4.1 in 2019, which is the same exchange rate in 2017. That's all for me, and I will pass to the next member to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Kai Yang. Now I will present Chapter 5 for SPSS analysis. This table is descriptive statistics. The data collected has been run in SPSS system using regression analysis with only 15 samples from year 2015 to 2019. The mean and standard deviation of dependent and variable ratio are recorded in table. In this study, descriptive statistics are used to explain the basic features of the data. Principally, the mean indicate an average data of the variables, whereas the standard deviation indicate the fluctuation level of given data. Furthermore, the higher the standard deviation, the more the fluctuation vice versa. We can look and see CG index have the mean of 0.605, standard deviation is 0.1158. For the ROE, mean is 0.083, standard deviation is 0.064. ROA have the mean of 0.06, standard deviation 0.048, current ratio 1.5207, and for the standard deviation is 0.41. Quick ratio is 0.98, standard deviation is 0.54, and comes towards, according to the table, is continuously. Like, come to the next. This is a table of correlation of dependent variable and company internal and external factor of the company. The correlation of CG index to both internal and external factor of manufacturing industry is shown in this table. From the table, we can see that unemployment is the least significant to CG index, while average correlation period is the most significant to CG index in manufacturing industry external factors. For the next slides, for the top left, it demonstrates the internal factor variable that is most significant affected manufacturing industry corporate governance, namely CG index, from 2015 to 2019. It has the adjusted R-square value of 0.633 and the mean Boston of 2.127. The remainder of 0.367 of adjusted R-square is acceptable to be qualified. Going forward to the left-hand side, right-hand side, this table indicates the model summary of industry CG index and external factors. The adjusted R-square and Dublin-Watson for external factors is negative 0.323 and 2.767 respectively. CG index and external factors are insignificantly correlated to each other. To the bottom left, this table show that adjusted R-square is recorded as 0.814. This means that the firm's internal and external factors together can only explain 81.4% of its CG index. The remainder adjusted R-square of 35.3% incapable to be explained. For the next slide is ANOVA. For the top left, this table demonstrates manufacturing industry ANOVA result for CG index and internal factor. It implicated the significant level of firm internal factor toward the industry independence issue, which is represented by CG index. Industry internal factors affected insufficiently industry CG index, and its p-value is 0.11, which is more than 0.05. For the right-hand side table, this table illustrates manufacturing industry ANOVA result for CG index and external factors. Industry CG index are not significantly affected by the manufacturing industry external factors, as its p-value is 0.961, which is more than 0.05. To be significantly affected, p-value must be less than or equal to 0.05. For the third table, show that the ANOVA result for manufacturing industry CG index and internal factor together with the external factors. According to the table above, the firm internal and external factor is not significant towards the industry independence issue, which is represented by CG index. This is because it has a significant value of 0.82, which is p-value is more than 0.05. For the next slides, coefficients. This table shows the coefficient of CG index with internal factors as independent variable. However, as a significant value for operating margin, ROE, current ratio, and operation ratio are more than 0.05, asset average collection period are less than 0.05, it shows that one of the internal factor, which is average correction period, is significant to the manufacturing industry CG index. For the right-hand side table, this table demonstrates the coefficient of CG index with firms and external factors as independent variable. However, with significant value more than 0.05, which is 0.503, 0.471, 0.696, and 0.723 for GDP, inflation, exchange rate, and unemployment respectively. This clearly illustrates that these external factors have no significant impact on company CG index. For the third table, this table shows the coefficient for the CG index with firm internal and external as independent variable. Despite having positive and negative relationship, ROE, current ratio, average collection period, operational ratio, GDP, inflation, exchange rate, and unemployment have no significant influence on the industry CG index. For the next slides, we come to the limitation. The limitation in this study was that only 5 years from 2015 to 2019 were being estimated. Small scope of firm internal and external factors are being considered. Just 3 representatives from manufacturing industry to be conducted in this study. Come to the conclusion. It can be concluded that these all factors have no influence on manufacturing industry independence, with its represented by CG index. To demonstrate a more accurate finding on which variable impact the manufacturing industry CG index the most, more internal and external factor variables should be examined in this study. Thank you.